Hello, I'm Aki Nakanishi, Arlene Schnitzer Curator of Culture, Art and Education here at Poland Japanese Garden. And I'm going to be your moderator as we explore the wondrous world of Japanese bamboo art today. So, welcome to today's webinar, Art of Vitality, Peter Shinbach Bamboo Art Collection, along with the collector himself and one of the, if not the, most prominent bamboo art dealer in the land, Margo Thoma of TAI Modern in Santa Fe, in New Mexico. As many of you know or even have visited and seen, this webinar is an adjacent part of the ongoing exhibition in the Calvin and Meiko Tanabe Gallery at Poland Japanese Garden with the same title, which actually features 7 exquisite pieces of bamboo art from Peter Shinbach collection. It was really due to the popular demand from general visitors for something that supplements and deepens this gallery viewing experience that compelled us to quickly put together this webinar. And I'm super excited that both speakers were able to make it, to be available for this live appearance for all of you today. So before we delve deeper into the program, I just wanted to give a quick housekeeping announcement. First, this program is being recorded for later viewing and sharing. It would be uploaded to Poland Japanese Garden's official YouTube channel at a later date. So even if you missed some parts of it today, you'll be able to go back in time to watch some specific segments again and again, if you like. And second, this is a live program. So being a live program, you'll be able to ask questions to the speakers towards the end of the program using the question box down below at the bottom of the screen. We typically get way more questions after the first couple of questions, and we never really get to all of the questions. So I'd encourage you to be the one breaking the silence to have your question at the very top of the box for easy recognition by me and speakers. Well, with that quick announcement, I'd like to get the ball rolling on today's intriguing conversation, setting the tone for all that we'll be discussing and learning about bamboo art. Well, with its elaborate braiding techniques and unique methods of cutting, curing, and twisting, Japanese bamboo is revered for its expressive possibilities since literally thousands of years ago. The current show in the Tanabe Gallery represents just a cross-section of the art form by numerous artists, both emerging and well-established. But walking us through such a diverse world of bamboo art today is a revered collector of the art form, Mr. Peter Shinbach. Peter, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. I don't know if you can, brilliant.
Thank you, Aki. Thanks for inviting me.
Great to have you here. And of course, this talk will be further enhanced by the presence of, as I alluded to earlier, one of the, if not the most celebrated galleries in the United States, specialized in Japanese bamboo artistry, Miss Margo Thoma of TAI Modern Santa Fe. Margo, we're totally blessed to have you join us here today.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Well, we'd like to get the conversation underway as soon as possible with Margo's quick presentation of Japanese bamboo art in general, but perhaps we can begin with a quick video walkthrough of the Tanabe Gallery show itself, just to remind viewers, or if you haven't seen the exhibition, just to let you see what the exhibition actually looks like. So I thought, who better to provide some quick commentary to this video than the collection owner himself. So Peter, while I roll the 2-minute video in a minute, would you be able to provide just a quick commentary as we walk through the video?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Excellent. So let me start sharing the screen. This one here. And then off you go.
Well, one of the things that impressed me first with your selection of the pieces for this exhibit is they kind of personify a whole range of bamboo artistry from the beginning of the 20th century to the present day. The first piece is by a living artist named Kibe Seiho, It's a fairly modern piece. However, it does incorporate some very traditional techniques, like those vertical strips that you see. They're from a teacher of his. And we jump next to Tanabe Gallery, another living artist. This is one of the pieces I frequently point to when people refer to my collection as bamboo baskets. This is not a basket. It cannot hold water. So, and it's also a piece that is really best viewed from the top and the bottom. Another unique piece is by an artist named Nakagura Kenichi. He's a bit of a cowboy, a lone wolf, if you will. Only practices by himself. He's also a very good flute player. And next to that are two pieces from a father and son. The piece in the back is by Maeda Chikobosai I. The second is by his son, Maeda Chikobosai II, who was designated a living national treasure by the Japanese government. I think he was the second bamboo artist to be recognized with that very high honor. Next is another one of those things that is not a basket. This is by Honda Shoryu. He's a living artist, fairly young. I think he's probably in his 50s. Margo, you'd know better than I would. And this is one of the older pieces that I have. And next to that is probably the most talked about and popular piece in the collection. It's by an artist named Kawashima Shigeo. Yes, that is bamboo. It's covered with lacquer with gold leaf. Kawashima was also an exhibitor at the Portland Japanese Garden in 2016. He was one of 4 bamboo artists who exhibited at the garden that year. And that is the current exhibit, which is, I think, staying until this weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
You're muted.
I was muted, wasn't I? But thank you so much, Peter, for that beautiful commentary, providing so much context to what we were seeing right there. Particularly, obviously, love the one towards the very end by Shigeo Kawashima. I just love the way it kind of disappears into thin air as you kind of walk away from it, and then comes right back again as you get closer to the object. It's just a magnificent piece right there. And well, it was a great scene setter for the viewers. So now, Margo, would you like to kick off your presentation to provide an overview and context for today's conversation, perhaps?
Of course, just a minute. All right.
Beautiful.
Bamboo is a pretty amazing plant. It combines lightness, strength, and flexibility with natural beauty. There are over 1,400 different species of bamboo, more than 600 of which grow in Japan. However, the type of bamboo used most frequently by bamboo artists is madake, or the Japanese timber bamboo. Bamboo is deeply intertwined in Japanese culture and daily life. It seems that there must be 1,400 different ways to use it. Just a few. Umbrellas, fans, earrings, hats, heels, handbags, ladders, lamps, light bulbs, toilet seats, beehives, and of course, sieves, scoops, carts, boxes, trays, and so many types of basket. And last but not least, it can be used to make art. The earliest known basket in Japan dates to around 7,900 BC. These baskets were made by the Jomon people, who were skilled basket makers and employed almost all of the basic plating techniques that are in use today. It is still unclear exactly when the people of Japan began using bamboo specifically to make baskets, but the earliest evidence of bamboo craft dates to around 6,000 BC. And the oldest woven bamboo container is from around 3000 BC. And it is amazing to me that over the course of 10,000 years of human progress, the way that people make baskets has not changed substantially. It is all comes down to a cutting tool and a pair of human hands. The origin of the flower basket can be traced to the 6th century when Buddhism was introduced to Japan. It was at this time that the custom of placing an offering of flower petals in a shallow bamboo tray before an image of Buddha began. Over time, arrangements of stemmed flowers replaced the original offering of petals. And by the early Kamakura period, the offering or presentation of flowers was beginning to spread outside of a solely religious context. Flower arrangements became more ornamental and relocated to family rooms and formal reception rooms, where they were featured as important design elements. In 1404, a trade relationship was established between Japan and China's Ming Dynasty. As a result, a large quantity of Chinese art was imported into Japan, setting off the fashion for Chinese art appreciation and connoisseurship. Included among these treasured objects, known as karamono, or Chinese things, were ornate, impeccably crafted bamboo baskets decorated with elaborate rattan wrapping and knotting. These imported baskets were valued not for their functional or ritual utility, but as objects of beauty. They were often displayed with a flowering tree branch selected to complement the dark formal form of the basket. Another import from China was matcha, powdered green tea. It too was a luxurious status symbol, and tea gatherings and the presentation of treasured objects together eventually became ritualized as the Japanese tea ceremony. The aesthetics of the tea ceremony underwent a major change in the 15th and 16th century when tea masters like Sin-no Rikyu advocated for a simpler, more natural style of tea ceremony. Bamboo baskets continued to have a place in the tea room, but they were more rustic in style. There was and is some demand for copies of rustic baskets used by famous tea masters, but the development of Japanese bamboo art is really tied to the rise of Shinsha tea ceremony, which used steeped tea leaves and was modeled after Ming Dynasty literati culture. The popularity of Shinsha tea ceremony led to, once again, an increased interest in Chinese objects and the development of a Japanese literati scene based in Osaka. The demand for Chinese baskets, however, was much, much higher than the supply, which was very low. So a cottage industry of skilled, competitive bamboo artisans who could copy or create baskets in the Chinese style emerged. And this is where Hayakawa Shokosai comes along. Hayakawa Shokosai I is regarded as the pioneer and founder of modern bamboo art in Japan. He was born in 1815 into a samurai family in today's Fukui Prefecture. Around the age of 18, he abandoned his service to the local lord and left home. He was said to have traveled through various provinces, learning all the skills necessary to become a professional basket maker. Around the age of 30, he moved to Osaka and set himself up as a highly skilled creator of Chinese-style baskets. However, at some point, Shokosai began to express his own artistic ideas in his designs. He invented new forms and incorporated Japanese artistic concepts into his intricately woven baskets. And he began to sign his work, proclaiming pride in his identity as an artist and as a citizen of Japan, often inscribing, "Shokosai of the great nation of Japan made this" on the bottom of his baskets. It wasn't long before other bamboo artists, such as Wada Waichi-sai, Yamamoto Chikuria-sai, Maeda Chikabosai, and Tanabe Chukun-sai, began signing their own works and contributing to the development of a uniquely Japanese style of basket. They were aided in this by the Japanese government's enthusiasm for international and domestic expositions, which provided exposure and the opportunity to win awards. Bamboo art in the earliest 20th century was probably characterized by the rise of Tokyo in Eastern Japan as an important artistic center, and the struggle of the art form to establish itself as a serious original art form. And Izuka Rokensai was a particularly crucial figure in both these movements. Rokensai was a gifted artist in several mediums. He was highly literate and intellectual. He was incredibly innovative and had radical new ideas about what a basket could be. He also established a new way to talk about bamboo art, taking a system of classification originally developed to describe calligraphy and applying it to bamboo. The categories were shin, or formal, so, informal or freestyle, and gyo, semi-formal, which kind of split the difference. It's interesting that to non-basket makers, when you look at these three styles of baskets, the formal looks like it would be the hardest to make. But if you talk to a bamboo artist, they would say that the informal piece is definitely the hardest and something that would only be possible after decades of experience. If Rokensai is the most influential bamboo artist of the first half of the 20th century, Shono Shonsai is the artist who had the greatest influence on the second half. Shonsai revolutionized the art form, creating works that ranged from exquisite traditional vessels to abstract expressionist sculpture to the simple, pure forms of his Zen phase. He also made his mark as a teacher, and his stature bestowed artistic legitimacy on the bamboo artists at Kyushu. He may be best known for being the first living national treasure in bamboo art, and for creating what is widely considered to be the art form's first sculpture with Doto in 1956. Artistically, the post-war period saw great advances for bamboo art. Financially, though, the domestic market for everyday baskets and utilitarian articles made out of bamboo was decimated by the introduction of cheap plastic replacements. The market for fine flower baskets likewise contracted as the study of tea ceremony and flower arranging became less popular. And it became very difficult to make a living as a bamboo artist. Yako Hodo, a talented sculptor, for decades supported himself by making lampshades for Panasonic. Aya Kajiwara, who was the first female bamboo artist to become a full member of the Japan Craft Arts Association, had to supplement her income with a part-time job as a caregiver in a nursing home. And this situation became even more dire when the Japanese bubble burst in 1992. So this was a situation when Lloyd Coateson, a longtime collector of Japanese baskets, asked Rob Coughlin to go to Japan to look for bamboo art in 1997. Coughlin began visiting Japan 2 or 3 times a year to search out living bamboo artists throughout the country. Mr. Coateson's collection was the subject of a show at the Asia Society in 1999, which introduced many Americans to the wonders of Japanese bamboo art. Meanwhile, Mr. Coughlin was beginning to represent and show many of the artists he met. At art fairs across the US, he presented bamboo baskets and sculptures as contemporary art. He also did many solo exhibitions of these artists at his Santa Fe Gallery. These original works were very fresh to American eyes, and a number of collectors, like Mr. Shinbach, started to build important collections of this art. Today, Western collectors are the main source of income for most bamboo artists. It can be tempting to be negative about the current state and future of bamboo art. Right now, there are probably about 200 people in Japan who make baskets for a living. Out of those 200, maybe about 50 of them are what could be considered professional artists, people who make original works using bamboo. That's not a lot of people to sustain a living art form. Many of these artists are in their 60s and 70s. Bamboo art is difficult to learn, and there never seem to be enough interested young people. There are a lot of challenges. But 30 years ago, artists were complaining about these same challenges, and bamboo art is still around. There are a lot of positives. It feels like the interest in and awareness of Japanese bamboo art is only increasing. Sculptors and vessel makers alike are continuing to make interesting new work. new expressions of bamboo art are being created. We're seeing more women enter the field, finally. People still want to buy bamboo art. And I guess most importantly, there are so many people who love and support this art form. So I feel hopeful, and I believe that bamboo art will have a long future. Thank you.
I was muted again.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Margo. I was muted. I also was speechless, you know. Thank you so much for that beautiful presentation, beautifully laying out the general overview of today's subject matter for all of us here.
Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah, just amazing to see how versatile and still relevant the ancient material like bamboo is to modern life. And, you know, I just couldn't be more appreciative of the fact that you just shared the whole breadth of what it is that we're going to be talking about. So thank you very much for laying it all out. Now, if I could perhaps expand on some of those points touched on throughout your presentation, Margo, by asking you some follow-up questions, and by the same token, asking you, Peter, some questions that I've always wanted to ask you as a collector of such an art form. But first, to Margo, I suppose, I'm curious to know, how do you, as a Western art dealer specialized in Japanese bamboo art, explain the essence of Japanese bamboo art to the layperson in the United States, for example? You know, what parallels or analogies do you tend to draw when talking to Western layperson who knows nothing about Japanese bamboo artistry, in terms of explaining why this art form matters?
I mean, from my point of view, it matters because it's beautiful. But I think, you know, I brought this question up at the staff meeting. I was interested to hear if anyone had used particular analogies in the past. And, you know, I think it matters to different people for different reasons. And, you know, I'm not sure it always matters that it's Japanese. Many of the people who come in and see it, they don't immediately know that this is Japanese. They just see an object that's intriguing and beautiful. And then what we tend to end up doing is talking about why we love this work or why we love this art form, rather than trying to convince someone of its importance, I suppose.
Well, thank you, Margo. Peter, if I can turn to you by also asking you, you know, what were some of the initial drives, you know, impetus for you to start collecting this exotic form of art? Just interested in knowing.
Well, Margo's already touched on it. It was the first thing was the Coatsen exhibit at the Asia Society in New York in 1999. I went to see it. I had some free time, and I had really never seen art form like that. It was how creative the pieces were. They weren't just baskets. There were sculptural pieces, and they're incredibly creative. It took me a couple years before I took the plunge. I didn't really get serious really until 2007, 2008. And the man whose fault that was Rob Coughlin, Margo's predecessor at Santa Fe. Now, what I've just said can be said by, I would guess, a couple of dozen other bamboo collectors. We all started with the Coatsen exhibit. We'd never seen anything like that. And then we got to know Rob, and things just took off from there. What keeps me interested is the very creative aspects of using a very non-creative substance. I mean, bamboo it's grass. And we start to see things Well, the Kawashima piece that is now in the Tanabe Gallery, we're seeing, and that's incorporates lacquer, which is another uniquely Japanese art medium. There are other bamboo artists who are using lacquer a lot today. They're using other substances. It's an art form which I don't believe exists anywhere else. And it continues to interest me and intrigue me. So I stay with it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Peter, for that great insight. I mean, it's just amazing to think how a vision of a single collector can have this ripple effect over the long run. Yeah, and then sparks a different passion in other people. And here we are talking about this art form so passionately. So, Margo, I was also intrigued to rediscover really how those art forms are interwoven with each other, by which I mean the way the culture of tea and culture of arrangement that you talked about have been informing the art of bamboo basketry and vice versa, I suppose. Would you help us unpack these relationships a little bit deeper in terms of their interplay, interdependence, how their modern day relationships may have evolved?
In some ways, this is an issue that every artist has an opinion on. To what degree does functionality matter? It's if it's a flower basket, does it have to hold flowers to be complete? And one of our artists, Yufu, does believe that his basket is incomplete until it holds flowers. Other artists believe that function is important, but that providing pleasure is a function, or being beautiful in someone's home is a function. Other people say that function doesn't matter to them at all. They don't think about how their baskets are going to be used after they're out of their hands. One of the major art organizations in Japan that many of our artists belong to, the Japan Traditional Craft Arts Society, part of its mission statement is function and beauty. So to submit to those competitions, if it's a flower basket, you have to include an atoshi, a receptacle to hold water for the flowers. And the other major organization is the Japan Fine Arts Organization, and that's more sculptural. And I think it can be both a good thing and a bad thing that the artists have kind of split into these two paths. But I think I will say that people are not as worried about the usefulness of a flower basket anymore. I think our artist's priority is to express, their creative vision, number one. Because when you sort of compare older pieces where many of the early bamboo artists, they studied flower arranging and they studied tea ceremony, and so that they would be better able to make objects for that use. It's an interesting question, and I'm not sure I have a very coherent answer.
No. It really does provide me with a beautiful segue to another question that I'm going to ask Peter, because I'm just curious to know how a collector actually enjoys them on your receiving end. I mean, at the end of the day, it becomes part of your property and collection, and it's up to you to make whatever use of what you have. So I just wonder how many pieces you've collected and amassed in your collection, as well as how you enjoy them at home or elsewhere.
I've got about 70 pieces, and Some of them are displayed, most of them are. It got to the point about 3 years ago where I just decided I was not going to put in any more shelves for baskets for bamboo. So that relegated a growing number of pieces down to the basement. So I rotate them. As far as how I enjoy it, it's very personal. Different people will look at bamboo art in different ways. I was thinking as Margo was talking, one of the things, Aki, as you know, I'm a tour guide at the Japanese garden. And one of the things that I find very similar to some of the garden styles at the garden and the way I appreciate bamboo artistry is they are both whatever you want them to be. There's no definition, for example, of in a sand and stone garden, or what in the West is frequently called a Zen garden. It is what you want it to be. When I look at the Kawashima piece that is on exhibit, or the Tanabe Kochikasai piece, I can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you what it isn't. It's going to vary from one person to another. So it's an opportunity to imagine. And I kind of appreciate that.
As a collector, I know you own a number of functional forms, flower baskets or fruit trays. And I guess, what about those forms appeal to you? Since I don't believe you arrange flowers in them or put them on Buddhist altars. So.
No. These days, it's the form and the technique. Why I get interested in a piece is going to change. Recently, it's been forms and techniques that I haven't seen before. The creative aspect of it. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it may have been, I was looking for more traditional, the karamono, the Chinese style, as a way to anchor the collection. So it varies from time to time. One thing I do not focus on, which I know a lot of collectors do, is the artist. That I'm missing this artist or that artist. I'm not so much concerned with that as I am the creative aspects, the techniques that are employed. That's what really interests me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Peter and Margo. Yeah, well, kind of back to you, Margo, about regional differences. If you like, I mean, bamboo trees are pretty much everywhere across, all regions of Japan. But we also know that there's certain different types of bamboo, growing in different parts of Japan, depending on climate and everything. So, would that have any bearing in terms of, characteristics or differences that you may discover in different parts of Japan, or is it pretty much flat the same across the country?
No, I mean, there are absolutely differences. One of the reasons Chinese baskets are so intricately detailed is because Chinese bamboo is softer. So, Kyushu, which is where a large concentration of artists live, the bamboo, the weather's warmer, so that bamboo is a little bit softer. And so I think you tend to see more weaving. Whereas, in the Kanto region, or even north of that in Sado Island or Niigata, the bamboo is harder and stiffer. So you see more line construction. And they use masawari, which is a radial cut bamboo, bundles of masawari, more in that region. they also tend to use more different types of bamboo as well.
Mm.
So there are differences that are due to the character of the bamboo. And then there are regional differences that relate to the history of the region and the art form in the region. The Kansai region, Shinsha tea ceremony, was a huge influence on the bamboo art tradition. I mean, I hate to journalize because as soon as I do, I can think of 3 exceptions, but Kansai baskets, are often, they tend towards sort of polished, refined shapes. They don't tend to get as large as some of the works from other regions. Traditionally, they've been a little bit darker in color. In Kyushu, they have this whole tradition of the exquisite jar-shaped basket, which looks like a Chinese bronze jar. And it's just a technique to show off, rows of incredibly detailed different plating styles. Rokensai's experimentation definitely influenced subsequent generations. There's a tendency towards, inventive asymmetrical shapes and, a broader range of colors.
All right, okay. So yeah, for me, it makes me wonder if any particular region has any concentration of like schools, masters and teachers who would take in, apprentice or disciples, students. I don't know if they pay to get those lessons, but I don't know how it goes these days. If it's an unpaid apprenticeship, like it's been the case the past centuries. I don't know how it's practiced these days, but is it becoming more independently practiced, or is it more school-based these days?
There is a vocational school in Beppu, where you can attend for 1 or 2 years, but you'll only learn the very, very basic techniques. It kind of takes another 10 years of study to really get to a professional level. And so, the older artists might have been apprentices. That system, by and large, doesn't work anymore, with the exception of Tanabe Chikunsai the fourth. He has 11 apprentices, and thank God he does. So it's kind of the responsibility of the student to seek out artists and try and learn from them, and to practice on their own and to push themselves. And I will say most of the older artists are very generous with sharing their knowledge and even, secret techniques that have been passed down to them. They just really want to do everything they can to help ensure that bamboo art survives for another generation.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That actually brings me to another question to you, Peter. Where you stand as a collector, do you have like a specific collection policy? I mean, if you can get your hands on anything, would you try to follow some lineage of certain artists or school, or you just go for, as you kind of alluded to earlier, you are inspired by technique and form. So you would just follow your kind of visual instinct? Is it how you collect bamboo basketry and bamboo art?
Well, today, that's the way it is. 3 years, 5 years ago, it was probably different. If I see a piece that interests me, I want to find out who the artist is and if it's representative of the artist. Then I might pursue that. But again, it changes, constantly changing. For example, there's one piece which is in the Tanabe Gallery now. It's that round bowl by Kibe Seiho.
Okay. The very first piece,
the very first piece. And I mentioned that it combined new design and old design. Well, the old design is from Hayakawa Shokusai, who Margo mentioned. It's those vertical stripes. That's very indicative of the Hayakawa line. Kibe, and this goes back to something that Margo mentioned, Kibe was one of 5 or 6 artists who were invited by Hayakawa Shokusai V to come and hang out for a while and, you know, exchange information, learn from each other, go off to howl at the wind at karaoke on Friday nights. I don't know. But what he then did was he took Hayakawa's family style and he incorporated it into his own works. That's what intrigued me about that piece. So each piece it's going to be different. The Kawashima piece, I saw it and I said, it looks like Alexander Calder.
Oh.
And also, like most people, I didn't believe that it's bamboo, but it is. So it varies from piece to piece.
Wow.
Yep. Kawashima considers those sculptures to be maquettes for large scale pieces. You should have them out to the garden, make a 10-foot tall version.
They did.
Very tempting. Oh my God. It sounds like it's a constant cycle of reappreciation, homage, and renditions, and I guess reinterpretation of old masterpieces by.
I mean, Aki, it's to me at least, it's quintessentially Japanese. They took something from another culture, Chinese style baskets, used it for a while, learned how to make it, learned how to design it, and then started to change it to make it into something which is uniquely Japanese. They've done it with so many things. This is just one of them. They continue to do that with bamboo.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess, you know, in this 60-minute webinar, we are here to take a deep dive to really get a rough understanding of this ecosystem, you know, from how it's produced, how it's revered, how it's also traded. And so to get into a little bit of nitty-gritty of the trade itself, you know, more about the price of the bamboo art in general. And so this is definitely, you know, addressed to Margo. But the prices of these pieces, are these prices driven mostly by their artistic lineage, or what, you know, basketry school, the vocational school they attended, or, you know, or is it purely by merit, artistic merit? How does one go about making sense of different pricing, you know, price points and, you know, basically different prices when one walks into the gallery?
You know, I wouldn't say, you know, artistic lineage necessarily is the most important factor. Seniority and maybe their status. If you're a living national treasure, you can charge a lot more than if you weren't. So it's sort of, yeah, based on the artist's stature and on the piece itself. An artist could have a range of prices, you know, within his overall body of work based on how complex and time consuming it was, sometimes even the material it was made from. You know, and this is not, maybe it shouldn't be a factor in pricing, but how productive the artist is also makes a difference. If an artist only makes 2 pieces a year, then those works are probably going to be more expensive than they would be if he made 20 of them.
controlled scarcity might play a role here. Brilliant. As a gallerist, I guess you are in direct touch with the basket makers and artists, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever give advice to the Japanese bamboo, basket makers and artists as to what's selling in the West?
It's we do, and it's actually something they're really interested in. Although as soon as we think something is the case, for a long time we thought collectors didn't like the natural color of blonde bamboo as much. And as soon as we think that, then we sell a bunch of them.
Right.
Or traditionally we felt like trays don't sell as well as flower baskets. At one point we were working with the Oita prefectural government to try and mentor young students, and showed some of their work, and this one piece, which was bright red, was very popular. And I noticed that some of the artists from the same town, we started seeing them make red pieces. And it's, because I guess from my point of view, I don't want to influence what they make too much. But I think it's impossible to avoid.
But to be fair, there are no perceived hierarchy between utilitarian, functional baskets versus more sculptural, abstract forms of bamboo artistry.
No, actually, sculptures tend to be less expensive.
Oh, right, okay.
But once again, case by case basis, that may not always be the case.
Made it when it was made.
Wow. So yeah, whether or not it's a sculptural versus a vessel form is not, the biggest indicator of price.
Wow, that alone is a huge insight into this, very little known trade, I guess, and the world of bamboo basketry. So thank you so much, Margo, for sharing that. Peter, if there are some, viewers out there, I mean, there are more than 100 people tuning in live. So there might be one or two people thinking, oh my God, I want to start collecting too. So what possible advice would you be able to give them? I mean, some do's and don'ts maybe as a beginner collector. What were some of the lessons that you learned as you started your own collection a few years ago? Some number of years ago.
Well, if you're interested in collecting, I would first ask myself, why? And am I collecting because it's an art form? Do I want to collect because it's an investment? Do I want to collect because my interior decorator said I needed a flower basket for the guest bathroom? Why? I would also then get exposed as much as possible to the art form. Now, that's not going to be easy because there just aren't a lot of places where you can see them. There are several museums that have very good collections. The Asian Art Museum in San Francisco, Minneapolis Institute of Art, Chicago Art Institute, the Metropolitan in New York is going to, but they're not there yet. And there's some others. Probably the most important thing is find somebody who can give you reliable advice and can help you. It's probably going to be a dealer. There are very few of them in the world who are knowledgeable about this. There are less than a handful in the United States. TAI Modern is at the top of the list. I'm certainly not divulging any trade secrets there. There are a couple in Europe. There are some in Japan, but buying in Japan has its own unique hurdles. And the other is just go slow. There are not a lot of pieces that are available. So there's no need to hurry up.
You traveled to Japan several times and met the artists. Did you feel that helped you as a collector?
That was, yeah, the first trip I took with TAI Gallery, and that was in 2008, probably had the greatest influence because I could see what they were doing. I could see the intricacy of the technique. I could see just the incredible creative experience there. Just one anecdote, we stopped at an artist's studio on Sado Island, and it was a father-son. The Honma Hideaki is the current resident. His father, Honma Kazuaki, was alive at the time. And the father was working on a piece. And he was working on it. And somebody in our group asked, how long does it normally take you to finish one of these pieces? He said that this one, pointing to what he was working on, this one so far has taken me 60 years. So, and he was serious. Wow. But it was seeing that, that really helped me, watching them cut the bamboo, strip the bamboo, talk about it, weave the bamboo. That really helped a lot.
Wow. Well, that speaks volumes to the master craftsmanship that you were introduced to. Yeah, and somewhat analogous to what it is that we come across quite often at the garden as well, you know, dealing with a whole array of different craftsmen and, you know, craftspeople and artists. Yeah, patience is definitely a key word here. I want to be also mindful of, you know, to give enough time for the virtual audience out there to ask questions. But so I would definitely encourage people to keep posting questions. But last question from me to you, Margo, is, I guess it kind of overlaps with one of the questions that's been posted. I think that was from Marcy. So if one wants to learn how to make baskets in this country, where could one turn to?
There used to actually be a Japanese bamboo artist who lived in Portland, Yonezawa Jiro. He moved back to Japan, so he's no longer, or not offering as many workshops as perhaps he once did. I don't know, I guess it'd be tough to learn in Japan. There's definitely a language barrier. I would say, you know, there are a couple. Carissa Brock is an American artist who works with bamboo. I believe she's in Portland as well. And, you know, she might have better advice on this than I would. Maybe just get some bamboo and start working with it and see what you can do.
Get inspired. Wow. Another question, kind of gradually moving, you know, onto the general Q&A session, if I may. Just kind of walking backwards, beginning with Jan Mihara's comment and question. Margo, are the pictures you showed in your book?
In my book?
Yeah, that's the question, I guess.
The pictures, most of them were, you know, either pictures of pieces we had in the gallery. Some of them I found on the internet, or some of them were photographs from visiting artist studios.
All right.
Um,
So in other words, would they be able to visit your gallery website to see more pictures?
there are a lot of pictures on our gallery website.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe one of the
so,
program operators can post the gallery website URL in the Q&A or comment box for people to just click on. Yeah. Oh, that's another really interesting question from Marty. How did Margo develop her interest in this specific art form?
by moving to Santa Fe, where TAI Gallery was. And, you know, I'd never seen anything like it before. I was interested in Japanese art, but I definitely hadn't heard about this one. At the time, I had an art gallery that showed contemporary American art. And I got to know Rob Coughlin and his wife, Mary, and always really admired, you know, what the gallery was doing. And, you know, Rob had to step away from the gallery and he wanted very badly for it to continue. And, you know, purchasing the gallery is probably, you know, more of a, you know, half a business decision and half of it because I felt like something precious and irreplaceable would be lost if I didn't. But I felt like I really, truly fell in love with the art form the first time I went to Japan and met all the artists for the first time. And just the ability to ask questions and even just like handle the work. And I don't know, yeah, 2 weeks later, I was a convert.
Wow. So it wasn't anything to do with the Lloyd Cotton collection exhibition that you talked about earlier?
No, but you know, Lloyd Cotton in many ways sort of led to the founding of TAI Gallery. So, but no, I'm afraid I didn't see that show, which I regret.
Well, there's going to have to be another iteration of this webinar, just delving right into your personal journey getting there as well. That's just as intriguing. So another question I want to get to is from Christine Ogura. She says, I weave baskets, and it was the technique that drew me to the exhibit when I saw it in January. I guess she's talking about our current exhibition. Amazing, she says. How much does Peter, as a collector, learn the techniques to understand this part of his collection and the appreciation of them? Is her question to you, Peter.
How much do I learn the techniques? Not at all.
Oh.
I don't know how to weave bamboo. I don't have 65 years to learn.
But do you at least learn about the artist and his kind of profile, or you just go for whatever?
I don't make it a practice to learn. What I know about the artist usually is just by happenstance. Either I met them on one of the bamboo trips I've taken 2. I got the pleasure of meeting quite a few of the artists. There's only one artist who I actually read up on, that was Izuku Rokensai, only because I felt that I needed to understand why he was felt to be so important to the art form. But other than that, I don't study bamboo in any way, shape, or form. I appreciate it.
That's definitely one way of appreciating bamboo basketry and art form as it is. And yeah, I also want to be mindful of our time together and, you know, sort of gradually moving to close the whole session by asking both of you for final thoughts or comments. You know, one last bit of question from the audience is, what happened to the Chinese art basketry? What happened to the Chinese tradition of bamboo basketry is one last question that came from Paula. So it's still going in China, right? Although very different way than what you see in Japan.
I mean, you know, I'm not as well versed in what's happening there. I think the Cultural Revolution was tough on a lot of traditional art forms. And it's kind of interesting because we actually have a lot of trouble figuring out what's a Chinese basket and what's a Japanese copy of a Chinese basket. There's no real way to tell by looking at it.
Because you were saying earlier, karamono literally translates to Chinese things. So back then, people were trying to copy the finest pieces from China and master the same technique, right?
Yeah. You know, I think there are, you know, some very skilled basket weavers in China. I'm not as aware of a creative movement of original artworks, baskets. The same, you know, Korea has a bamboo weaving tradition, and Taiwan and many countries do, but I don't think any have pushed it as far as Japan has.
Yeah, kind of relates back to, sorry, this is literally the last thing that I pick up from the Q&A box here, but Joyce says, you know, she asks about the kind of intersection between the bamboo art form with other art forms from Japan. But we did touch on these things, you know, the intersection between the ceremony, tea ceremony, the culture of flower arrangement fairly early on in this program. So Joyce, you can definitely see the recorded video of this session, but I guess in Japan, there were multiple layers and intersections kind of interacting, riffing off of different art forms, people mingling and exchanging ideas and philosophies, I guess, in these situations that really led to formation and innovation of certain art form, I'm quite sure. But yeah, again, be mindful of time that's allowed for this program. I'd like to ask for kind of, you know, final thoughts and comments to wrap things up. Perhaps we take kind of reverse order of introduction. So Margo, would you like to go first?
You know, I don't know that there's anything I feel like I need to say that I haven't said, but you know, I just want to share my gratitude for hosting this event and for the attention that the garden has given bamboo art. It's still very, very obscure. And no, I'm just always so pleased to see, you know, that 100 people showed up to learn about Japanese bamboo art. So thank you.
There's a lot of curiosity here, for sure. Peter?
I'd like to echo what Margo said and thank you, Aki, and to everybody at the garden. This is, to my knowledge, the 4th bamboo exhibition the garden has had since I've been in Portland, which is about 15 years. One of the things that I always enjoy is seeing people see bamboo art for the first time, and they're just kind of amazed at it. And I think a lot of the questions and reactions that we're seeing on this webinar reflect that. So thank you all, and I appreciate it.
And yeah.
Oh, sorry.
If anyone has any questions that I wasn't able to answer, feel free to email them to me, or you can call the gallery. The number's on our webpage.
Right, yeah. But I gotta say, Margo, the Q&A, you know, was filled with comments as well, not just questions, saying, you know, some of them have visited your gallery and it was a wonderful experience. And same to you, Peter. Many of these people have visited this mini exhibition at Tanabe Gallery and had a wonderful experience there. So for me, yeah, to sum it all up, in the, I guess, 21st century, the practice of bamboo art remains diverse, with a new generation of craftspeople exploring the technical and aesthetic qualities of bamboo. So as curator of all programs here at Poland Japanese Garden, I feel very blessed to have been able to show these pieces at the garden, while also learning more and more about them with experts like Margo and Peter, coming from years of experience and connoisseurship. So it's been especially meaningful talking about this exhibition here at the garden to have them on display within the garden setting, since the garden doesn't just have bamboo trees scattered across different parts of the garden, but also the garden incorporates the versatility of bamboo as, for example, building material and ornamental as well as functional features within the garden grounds. So you may have, the viewers may have noticed the hand-built bamboo fences or bamboo spout by the stone basin in a garden. Or you may also have seen gardeners using a broom made out of bamboo. The next time you are up at the garden, it might be fun to do a little scavenger hunt or something to spot all these integral parts of the garden that are made of bamboo. You'll be surprised just how it's interwoven, it's woven into the cultural fabric of the garden itself, kind of representing sustainability. So I hope all of you enjoyed the program as much as I did. I truly think that this is one of the most organic forms of art in the world, with nothing but the raw material and the thinking hands, navigating these materials to guide them to be exactly where they ought to be in order to bring this to life in perpetuity. So this gallery show, the Tanabe Gallery show, ends on April 17th with the ongoing Netsuke exhibition in the Pavilion Gallery, which is also proving to be extremely popular. We will look forward to welcoming you here and guiding you sometime to this particular exhibition and various parts of the garden, that is contemplation and place of discovery. And let me quickly acknowledge that you, the viewers, are a big part of what makes our garden go that extra mile in sharing these fine art forms with people around the world, not just within the United States. And of course, I want to convey a heartfelt thank you again to Peter and Margo for the generosity of your time. And we will look forward to seeing you both in person very, very soon. Thank you so much for your time joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter and Margo. Bye.